Good afternoon, Wisconsin ATV Association followers. I'm Adam Harden.
I'm Randy Harden. Hello.
And today we're doing something new for Idle Chat, believe it or not, because we've been doing this for so long. A few new things. Our sets changed a little bit, and we added a green screen.
We could be doing the weather, right?
We could do the weather, right? And we might actually add that when more trails open. I'll put up a little weather graphic around here, and we'll see. Do some weather. I tested it out already. Works. All right. So, and we're using a new camera, not a new, but a better camera. The green screen thing, like I said, we're still working the bugs out. There's some fuzziness at the bottom here, but we'll get that fixed.
Yeah, don't mention it. Nobody will see it.
I didn't say anything.
Okay.
All right, so today's... I'm going to take my headphones off.
Okay.
All right. So today's episode is going to focus on questions we receive in the office. Common questions.
Oh, boy. We get lots of those.
I know. We get a lot of questions. Some common, some not. But this video is going to serve as a reference for later on. If hopefully you can go into Google and type these questions out. But we'll be happy to help you, if not. But this is just to help alleviate some of these repetitive questions that we get a lot. And we understand there may be some confusion.
Yes.
And for the record, this is not a official legal advice.
We're not attorneys.
No,
we're not law enforcement, and we're not accountants.
Nope.
But we know this stuff.
We do. So hopefully the information we give you today is helpful and insightful. And
if you want to know detail, then go see your attorney, accountant, or talk to somebody that's a credentialed law enforcement.
Yes.
See, that's our disclaimer. So they come back and say, these guys said.
Yeah, right. They said. Okay, so the first question, and like I said, we get this a few times, is how should clubs be organized in regard to their tax status?
Well, that's a good question, Adam.
That is.
Actually,
that was from Julie.
Julie asked that question. Well, how it works in Wisconsin, some states are different, but first clubs form a nonprofit corporation based under Wisconsin law. It's a Chapter 181, Department of Financial Institutions. They're the ones that manage corporations. And you want to do that to protect your personal liability. So it's a shroud of corporate shield, if you would. And that just gets the corporate set up. And then you have up to 3 years, I believe it is, to figure out federally. You still want to get a federal ID number. You do that actually over the phone once you get your state corporation filled out. And this all sounds complicated, and it's really not once you go to their website. While you could hire an attorney to do it, it's $35 and really easy to do to form this corporation for a nonprofit.
Wow.
And then you have to decide how much you kind of get a feel for your nonprofit club corporation, how much money you're going to be bringing and spending, and a certain amount. Then you want to get a federal designation. You often hear the words 501c3, which churches are and big foundations are. In almost every case, none of our clubs, when they get to that point, want to be a C3 because you can't do any lobbying. And all our clubs are lobbying their towns, their counties, their state. So usually it's either a 501c4, which is educational based, which is what we are, or a 501c7, which is like a trade organization, a social group. So
that's 501c3s really are under the microscope as far as
expensive.
Right, it's expensive to set up, but once you get it in place, you're under the microscope with the IRS.
Yep.
Political affiliation or not.
And I hate to say this, but all the terrorism money that gets put around, they usually do it under a C3, so that's why they're under a microscope.
And so it's very critical if you go that route that you keep everything in order.
Well, that's with any. But anyway, like I say, first you get it done, to repeat, statewide, Chapter 181, and just go to the website, Wisconsin Financial Department of Institutions, and I think they abbreviate WFDI.org.
Right.
But you can do a Google search. It's really easy.
Okay, so that's our first question. Our second one, Ryan asks, is it true the two-stroke ATVs are being banned from Wisconsin trails?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Banshees.
But you hear stuff. The answer is no. Certainly in the industry, the two-stroke has dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. Just where the industry's going is the four-stroke, four-cycle, cleaner, that kind of stuff. But there's nothing that I've seen or heard that's doing away with the two-stroke. So if you got them out there, they'll keep going.
Okay. So rest assured, Banshee riders.
And
what
was the other one? The 200cc Yamaha. What was that? The Banshee was a 350 two-stroke.
Yeah.
Blaster.
Oh yeah.
And then there was some Polaris.
Wasn't the Scrambler?
One. They had one was a 500, one was a 400. I think the 400 was a two-stroke. But
so rest assured, those machines can still ride. All right. Tom asked. He has a question with ATVs and laws. He can't resolve from the booklet. Inappropriate or damaging as it may be, is it legal to operate an ATV in a wetland or on one's private property or on another private property with their permission? That would be in the mud, the water, the cattails. Right.
And as we told Tom, that's not going to be in the statute that pertains to ATVs. That's it sounds like official on TV, but that's 23.33 is the ATV statute. Then there's a thing called administrative code. It's like a law, but that'll be under wetland protection. It'll be in a different statute or code. And generically it has to do, a person may think you can do anything on your own property, but that is not always so. If you've got a wetland stream where what you do in your riverway affects what goes on down the river
and
down
just
the waterway.
And you may not even be aware that you have a designated stream on your property because maybe 3 or 4 months out of the year there's nothing there. It's actually dry, but it's actually it's designated, and you'd have to look that up on your land plot maps. And
and interesting, once in a while I get blasted by people that might not like ATVs. They'll see a picture of us on our website going through water or mud. Well, it's actually on the trail. After it had rained, there was water on the trail. Well, that's fine. That's not a waterway. That's not a wetlands. That's not a swamp or lowlands. That's just water on the trail. That's different than going out in the middle of a swamp or a wetlands.
And there are some crossings yet in Wisconsin that you go through a river, but they have what's called a prepared bottom.
A forded bottom, yep.
Yep. So those are legal that you can cross through. If you see somebody out in the middle of a pond or a stream that's just buried,
navigable stream,
that's not appropriate.
That's why we have so many bridges, and a lot of our trail fund gets used to build bridges or boardwalks.
Right. So, and we like to support those because if you think about the machines going through a river, you're going to be dumping sediment in there. There's a lot of things could go wrong with that.
Yep.
So, all right, we're going to move on. This question, I forgot to put a name down, so I apologize. But they were wondering if we would consider opening up a line of communication with regards to ATV and UTV usage on railroad grades that for the most part runs between such and such community. We get this question a lot.
In fact, before we came on the air, I was answering a question about that topic.
And we see a lot of the rail to trails programs and the abandoned railways being turned into trails because that's actually not a bad use for some sports or even our sports. So, but there's caveats with that.
There are. So now we have like the Tuscobia Trail is an abandoned railway. The Cheese Country Trail down in the southwest part of the state. And we've got others. The Wild River Trail. It all depends on what money was used to develop the trail. If there was a federal Transportation Enhancement Act dollars used, there's that caveat. They have a string on it that says it can't be used for motorized except for snowmobiles in the winter. And this is a federal designation that these rules were made before ATVs were even popular. So it's important when you find a community that might have an abandoned railway coming up that you be involved in the process right away so you can make sure that that's not applied for. But if it's already applied for, we're pretty much out of the picture because of the federal designation and or it's usually turned over to a local county or municipality, and they would have to change a master plan on top of it. So,
is there a time designation on that?
well, they used to say it was in perpetuity. It was forever. We have a trail up in northwestern Wisconsin that the Federal Highway Administration in Washington said they did allow it to say the development dollars had been used up after 15 years. But then the county was unwilling to change the master plan, so it got by the first hurdle, but not the second.
All right. So Derek asks, a group of people who ride here in insert local community were wondering what steps need to be taken to see if trails could be opened here. We're a small group, just wondering if you know of anyone who else might be trying, or if you can steer me in the right direction as to where we can begin.
Another good question. Get that a lot. That's where you always want to start with a club. An organized effort is what you're after, and that's what our organization is about. We have regional coordinators located throughout the state. You can contact us here at the home office. We'll get it to the right person. If you don't know, we'll come. What I usually ask is get 4 or 5 people of like mind, want to do the same thing together, and we'll come out and meet in person and do a lunch of Q&A, and the learning curve of who all the players are, how it works to get land access can be more complicated than you think. And it's not rocket science, but there's a lot of contacts, connections, and mistakes that can be made. So I always like to say you want to take your time at the beginning so you can get not derail yourself by going the wrong direction, but get organized, get formed, get some instruction with our regional coordinators to help and our home office, and get you plugged in with the other clubs in the general vicinity if there are any. So that's it. It's always organization.
Yep. Remember the butterfly effect. What you do at the beginning just continues on down that path. So it's very important to be set up right the first, right away, than having to change something once you start the whole process.
Yep.
So, and that's what we're here to help you with. Us, the home office, and our regional coordinators. All right. Seth asks, I'd much like to join excuse the grammar here. I'd much like to join clubs and participate in more and more ATV rides. However, the schedule never works out, and I need to know about rides like a month in advance. So I think what he's getting at there is, where do you find that information out?
Right.
About local clubs and whatnot.
Well, there's 2 ways that we always recommend. Number one, if you become, and we hope you do, a member of the Wisconsin ATV Association, besides our Facebook and web, we have a print magazine that goes out quarterly. Many of our clubs, we have about 100 local clubs, will post their events, their rides, their activities in them. And those, we don't have 100 clubs posting it, but there's a fair amount of them. And or you can find the local club contact information in the back of our magazine or on our website, and you can go to those clubs and you'll generally find their event posting. So
yep, there it is.
That's how to find them.
All right. John asks, hi, has your group ever talked with the snowmobiling groups about allowing ATVs with tracks on the public trail system? If so, what were the results?
The tracked vehicles. Interesting. Yes, and yes. We have actually had shows that we coordinated and asked some of the track manufacturers to come in. Our group rode the machines, and then we went to another. There's 2 companies. There's a huge one here in Wisconsin. Then there was another one that had a kit, not only the tracks, but they ran the tires up on the skis for the front. And it was kind of funny. The Snowmobile Association, AWSC, Association of Wisconsin Snowmobile Clubs, and WATFA and our team met with these, rode these. And the snowmobile folks says, well, you got to figure out how to change it in state law to make it a UTV or an ATV, because it defines it in statute as having wheels, not tracks. And so we thought they were going to try and make it a snowmobile, and the snowmobilers thought they were going to make it an ATV. So we started talking about it, but we told both companies, look, WATFA doesn't sell these. We don't make them. You got to be here to help. We're not going to carry the heavy load.
Yep.
and it just never went anywhere. Now, interesting, AWSC had asked me, they hold a international conference. They had one in Green Bay a couple of years ago, and I was on a panel about ATV snowmobile clubs working together, and that track machine came up. So this was a much wider audience. Oh my goodness, was it controversial hot button. So I think here in Wisconsin, it was just a matter of somebody that makes them or manufacture them needed to work toward it. But across the northern snow belt, goodness sakes, there was a lot of anti-sentiment on it.
My personal opinion, not the official opinion of WATFA, is, I mean, we would register them in winter as almost a snowmobile. Or, we'd have to figure out the funding where some of the funding from that registration could go towards the snowmobiles. But a lot of people think that, man, those things can destroy, their tracks. But we got to test them in a few different environments, and they left less of a footprint than your tires. And if you're going to use them for off-trail riding, you're not going to get away very fast.
Yep.
You limit your speed by 50%. So you can go through more, you just can't go as fast. And they're harder to turn, but they're designed for a really one purpose. And if you go through a marsh or you go somewhere, they're going to leave less of a footprint, like I said.
Yeah. And then we're back to the wetland question.
Right.
So where you might be in it, but it's illegal to be in there. But they do leave, as we found out, much less of a footprint, but they're not as maneuverable.
Yeah.
And they're not very fast. So while it seems like it might be fun,
it's just like, is driving a tank fun?
Yeah. For a little bit.
Yeah. So, all right. So we get this one, especially in the southern part of the state. Steve asked, or he tells us actually, please tell me there are plans to convert the snowmobile trails and the Kettles into ATV trails for the rest of the year. Financially, it would be beneficial for all of the county. The Kettle spans more than one county, by the way.
The Kettle Moraine State Forest is what he's referring to.
And we get that question a lot.
Yeah, and there's other state forests, the Northern Highland, American Legion. All of these properties have these 10 to 15-year master plans. And a master plan is really, as it says, what kind of activities are going to be taking place in there. It's a public input process. There's a lot of different activities. I can tell you right now, the Kettle Moraine master plan is coming up for renewal. And I know one of our clubs in Washington County has an abandoned railway in the winter only on the Eisenbaum Trail, and they're working toward that kind of thought process. But it's a long, drawn out, very public process. I was involved in it 15 years ago, and it was really controversial because of the motorized versus the non-motorized. So that's a lot of considerations. It really is. You've got so much land and so many uses.
Well, in retrospect, the size of the Kettle Moraine compared to
the Northern
Highland, I mean, Kettle Moraine actually isn't that big, or there's not a lot of usable. It's more long than wide. Yeah. And so you got to share all that space in there. And there was one of the concerns. So
we're looking at, besides those, sometimes now the state has changed some laws on forest roads within state property. So that may be an option for some of us. Again, and these are dirt roads for the most case, not paved roads. Excuse me. And then, like you said, the Northern Highland is like 230,000 acres over 3 counties. It's a much larger parcel. And then we're looking at also to change some laws where we can buy private property linear trails, not big acreage, but linear, to help with this stuff. So the low-hanging fruit, they fight world wars over land access. So we have to find different ways.
And the biggest problem with southern Wisconsin compared to northern Wisconsin is southern Wisconsin is pretty much private property versus northern Wisconsin, which is more of county-managed forest.
You bring up a good point. The majority of our trail systems now are on, by far and away, the highest percentage is county forest lands. County forest. And then we have some on some state properties, some on some federal, meaning the Forest Service. And we do have some private trails. But on the snow side, by far they have more snowmobile. But in the wintertime, over the water, everything's froze.
Yeah.
Don't have that in the summer.
So there's another answer to one of the questions of why aren't there trails in southern Wisconsin?
Oh.
There you go.
And development.
And
it's
development,
much more populated.
Yep. However, there is a trail that they're proposing in Milwaukee County.
Well, that would actually be a park.
Right. They're still going forward with that. It's slow as anything.
Coming up for funding is the issue.
The funding is the issue, but it might happen. So, all right. This question we get a lot now. Brian asks, can you tell me what I need to ride the trails near Darlington or other community for the weekend? I'm from Illinois. I've heard just a pass, then I've heard a pass with a license plate. What's the answer?
The answer is they need to buy a non-resident TRO Pass. They can also register in Wisconsin if they're here a lot, but there's two kinds of TRO Passes. There's an annual, and there's a 5 continuous day TRO Pass. If you take the non-resident TRO Pass at this time, you do not have to have a license plate. That's only for machines registered in Wisconsin. If you register it permanently, then you do have to have the license plate as well as the stickers. But if you're here on a non-resident TRO Pass, you get one sticker that goes on the front. That's all you need, either the 5-day or the annual. Simple as that.
Okay. I'm going to skip around here a little bit. Dave asks, I've heard a rumor that Wisconsin will or has made it illegal to ride a 2-person or made it to ride 2 people on an ATV designed for 1 person. Do you know if this is a new law or if it's coming soon?
Yeah, I've heard that rumor a while now, too. I'm not sure where it starts now. Michigan, I believe, has that law now, and it has had it for quite a while. I think Minnesota was looking at it. I don't know if they passed it. We looked at it some years back, and then what we do is we bring what we would call partners, and we filter or vet the ideas. Our Wisconsin Farm Bureau folks at the time says we don't want that law because they're using them out on the farm to do this, whether that's right or wrong or safe or unsafe. So at this point, we're not. Now the manufacturers, as we all know, are building them now, designed for 2, and that's what we're really recommending people go to. And it's much more comfortable. It's much safer. The machines have a place for the passengers' feet and hands. Hold on. The machine has different suspension. It's longer. That's really what we recommend. But at this time, we're not aware of any such action and haven't seen it. So, I mean, that stuff can pop up from time to time, but we don't know of it.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is from Greg. He asks, our club is a member of WATFA. Thank you. The question is, how is insurance coverage for the TRO Patrol Ambassador Program covered in terms of liability?
Yeah, and the answer there is our Trail Patrol Ambassador Program, and maybe you've seen some in our videos. You've seen them out on the trail. They're geared up in a highly visible yellow vest with name badge identificators. Some of them will have TRO Patrol on the front. We actually went to state lawmakers back in the early 2000s. It's in statute. That program is in law. And then we do it in partnership with our Bureau of Law Enforcement. So they're separate from us, but we did it in a signed contract, this patrol program. So there's protocols. So just like, if you volunteer to build a house for Habitat for Humanity, or you're in the Big Brothers Big Sisters, you're volunteering, you have protections by the state and federal laws. Same here. It's a legitimate program that's recognized by the state. As long as you stay within the rules of the program, you've got the same kind of liability protections as any other volunteer program. So don't hesitate to come join the fun, and it's rewarding. And you get to ride.
Yeah.
How many volunteer jobs do you get? You get to go ride ATVs.
Right.
And UTVs.
Okay, the last question. Holly asks, she asks, I'm volunteering to develop a map for our club. I'm sorry. There's your first mistake. I'm just kidding. They need sample maps of other club maps that have been developed. Can you help us with that? So there's a few questions. There are a few things we can touch on.
We have, talking of partnerships, I think one of the most important ones that we have is a company out of Michigan, VV Mapping. And it's just an awesome partnership because his company, they GPS and get the maps and put them in a form we can use. They do some stuff, a lot of stuff for WATFA and National Motorsports. And you can get that kind of data from him. He for clubs and stuff, he basically gives that stuff for pretty much.
Yeah, he doesn't charge as long as you put your logo on his logo on there. And if you don't want that, then he charges you. So
you can go through our group and we'll get you hooked up, or if you found something locally. But if you go on our website, you'll see the big trail map book, and then how we kind of do it, Adam. Remember, we kind of tell people, get this big book. It's over 100 pages.
yeah,
So it's pretty detailed of all the routes and trails, and that's your planning book. I mean, you can tell how you're going to get from here to there, but it's big. It's a big map.
Yep.
Book. It's like an atlas. Then when you get to your local trail community, so say you're going to go to Washburn County, when you get up there, get your little fold-up map, pay your $1 or $2. You can fold it up back in your pocket, get it wet, get it dirty, and it's there. So those are the two kind of maps. So she's talking about making one of those, I believe, just our local area.
Yep. And if your club needs help with that, we can help you. I've laid out a few maps before, and we do it every spring now. For Trail Tales, people who are part of WATFA, you get a folded map, and we're working,
of the state,
and we're working on that right now. So, we can help you.
It can be daunting if you don't know where to start. That's what she was asking. So for other folks, that's really what the state association is all about: providing tools for the local effort. We work together. WATFA would be no good without local clubs, and local clubs benefit likewise of the big picture stuff that the organization works on. So it really works in concert together for tools like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all the questions that I could find. Hopefully I didn't miss any. If I did miss any, send us an email, info@watfa.org. Leave it on our Facebook or call us. We'll try to answer it for you, and we'll try to bring some more of these episodes up with answering some common questions. And hopefully this summer we can put out some individual answers to one question to one video, so we can reference those later on. But
Adam, I know these get posted and stay on the YouTube channel, but if you're watching this before April 11th, in Wausau we're having our big statewide regional meeting. But what's happening on Saturday, the 11th, Saturday morning, is First one we've done is a recreational and economic summit. So we've got some pretty unique and high-profile panelists from the Secretary of the DNR, the head of the DNR, the Deputy Secretary of Tourism. We got county foresters. We got county economic tourism. We've got business owners on the trail that own resorts and restaurants and taverns. And we've got a couple big dealerships. We've got a town that owns a park and trail system in there. I mean, it's going to be really fun to talk about our 3 different panels about jobs and what ATVing and UTVing means to the economy of our state, and how big it is and how important it is.
And we'll record that in case you miss it. We're going to try to stream it. I don't know what the bandwidth is up there, but if anything, we'll have it recorded and we'll offered online later.
So by chance, if you get a chance to watch this before then, or else look for it if the recording works. Again, a lot of activity. It's going to be a long one. It starts at 9. It'll probably be done at 12:30. So it's at the Plaza Hotel in Wausau. So look on our website and the information's there. So that's all for me.
Okay. Well, for the Wisconsin ATV UTV Association, I'm Adam.
Hey, and I'm going to go get my ATV and ride behind us here.
Yeah,
and I'm Randy.
Yeah,
see you soon.
We got to be watching behind us now. We're out here in Syracuse where it's nice and sunny and the leaves are on the tree.
Yeah.
John, however you do this, I don't know, but thank you. Sorry, we'll